The Dark Art of Life Mastery and Finding Clarity in Uncertainty. Welcome to Personal Development Mastery, the podcast for intelligent, busy professionals who have achieved success but feel something's missing and are seeking clarity, purpose, and fulfillment. Each episode helps you grow by inspiring aligned action through practical insights you can actually use. I'm your host, Agi Keramidas. Join us every Monday for an insightful conversation with a guest, and each Thursday for a shorter episode where I reflect and share with you. This is episode 552. If you are looking to find clarity in uncertainty and redefine what success means to you, this conversation explores how embracing uncertainty and making identity-driven choices can lead to a more meaningful life. If you are feeling externally successful but internally unfulfilled, then this episode is for you. Before we start, if you resonate with the topics we discuss on the podcast and you are navigating a transition or perhaps feeling called to a next chapter that is more purposeful and intentional, I offer one-to-one coaching and mentoring to help you get clear, reconnect with what truly matters, and move ahead with confidence. To explore what that could look like for you, visit personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/mentor or just tap the link in the show notes. Now let's get started. My guest today is Hussein Hallak. Hussein, you are a Syrian-born Canadian entrepreneur, strategist, and author of The Dark Art of Life Mastery. Your work helps people and organizations build meaning and impact by embracing uncertainty and redefining success on their own terms. You are passionate about helping people confront their illusions, reclaim their agency, and stop waiting for permission to live. Hussein, welcome to the show. Such a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this great conversation.
Me too. I'm looking forward to exploring with you how to find clarity in chaos or in uncertainty, perhaps not chaos as such. And also, as implied by your book, The Art of Living, or Mastering the Art of Living. Before we go there, what has been for you the defining moment that most, let's say, shaped your understanding of life mastery? Was there an experience that changed how you see mastery, success, failure?
Yeah. I think there were many moments, but one of the key ones, and that's a great question, one of the key ones is when I asked myself, what do I really want with life? So I had many objectives, many goals, and I go after many things. Like I was in a band. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be a TV personality. I wanted to be, this rich entrepreneur. I wanted to be many things. But then when I asked myself what really truly matters to me the most, what is the one thing that if I don't have, it's like I don't have anything at all. Like whatever else I have, it doesn't matter. It was me having a happy and healthy family. And that meant something real for me. Like when you say it, people of course, everybody wants that. But for me, it was a direct contrast to how I was living my life. I was living my life as if if I get success in business, it will lead to, providing for my family. It will lead for a happy, healthy family. But these were like flimsy connections. It was in my head that if I get this, it will lead to this, it will lead to this. But when I asked myself that question, I saw direct link in order for me to get a good business, I was ignoring my family. I wasn't spending that much time. So I was actually doing the opposite. So that's why it was a defining moment for me. That was one of the key defining moments, I would say, happened almost now 17, 18 years ago.
Let's talk about your book, which you call The Dark Art of Life Mastery. So tell us, what first of all, what does life mastery mean to you? And of course, then I will ask you, why is it a dark art rather than, a formula or something else?
For sure. I think for me, life mastery, which is still an area that I'm exploring and discovering and learning, it's like the yin and yang. It's the constant dance between being and I would say doing. So you choose to be someone. I choose to be, let's say, a father. And then all of my thoughts, words, and actions flow from there. And I start doing what a father needs to do. And then I hit reality. So there's the being. I show up as like, I want to be the greatest father. And then I hit reality. Let's say my son is dealing with an issue with his friend that I need to help him solve. And I'm not at all equipped. So my doingness, even though I want to be a great father, my doingness is limited with what the world offers. So I have to come back again, question myself, be in the being again, flow from there. So it's the constant kind of being and doing and being in that cycle and understanding that there is never a state that says, I've mastered life, everything is fine. So that's that constant move, or that I call it the dance because it's kind of more fun if we call it the dance between the being and doing, is where life mastery lives. And it's constantly evolving. That's the other thing. It's always what life mastery looks like today at this moment will look differently in the other moment. So it's the true living, I would say. That's what life mastery is.
I like that, and I liked what you said, that it is not a state, something to be achieved. For mastery, in my view of it, because as we were talking earlier, my podcast is Personal Development Mastery. So it is mastery. It is something I have also, studied or contemplated anyway. And what I have realized is that one never arrives to this kind of mastery. It's not mastery of the guitar. You can arrive to a certain level that you can say, I'm a master in the guitar. But in life, it is the guiding principle. That's how I look at it. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think I will offer, let's say, an addition to that. So to a certain extent, I agree. True masters, the thing is, for somebody who, let's say, haven't worked to master something in their life, they might think about mastery in many different ways. Like you said, like a state. It's like, oh, it's something to achieve. But true masters, what end up happening is that even if you master the guitar, you achieve a level of mastery, then there is something else you're after. Because we are, as human beings, we are an evolving being. We're always seeking. That's part of who we are. We're never sitting down. We were born to seek. Our brain works like that. We for example, even as movement. Once I talked to an expert in movement, and he says, your body, when you sit, you're actually acting against your body because your body is built to move, and the more you move, it's not about practice or sports, but movement is how the body stays alive. The more you sit, there's like this study that said sitting is more dangerous than smoking. I don't know how active, but I mean, like, just to indicate how it is. So I think the constant movement, and even if you want to master something like guitar or sword making, for example, you see those masters. I'm fascinated with these YouTube videos to see somebody in their mastery. They create something. They're now interested in creating something else. And that's what brings them joy. So when you are in mastery, you're in pure joy because you're creating, you're exploring what else you can do, and you're developing who you are. And it's such a great place to be.
Thank you for this addition to that. And it's a very good, way of looking at it, the way you just described. And why life mastery then? Why is it a dark art? Explain that to us.
Because most of the time you have no clue what's waiting for you in the next moment. We can anticipate. We can say the next moment is likely to be like, I'm sitting at my home right now, my home office, and it's likely that nobody's going to knock the door. But hey, sometimes a neighbor knocks the door and say, you know what, why you're parking your car this way? So it's very hard to anticipate what the next moment is, and we're extremely busy with anticipating what the next moment because we want to be prepared for it. So what we miss is the current moment. So I think if we let go of that, and that's what the dark art is about, it's the art part is not knowing what's going to come out. Like, even if you're an artist and completely mastered your capabilities, every painting is a discovery, is a journey. So the art by itself is a discovery and a journey. You're never, even if you imitate life, and even if you're perfect at doing that, even if you have a camera, if you change one setting, it's different. So that is constantly, so that's the art. The art, if you're doing art, if you're not just doing copy, if you're doing art, and life is an art, it's always different, even if you're trying to replicate the same moment. By definition is different. And then the darkness is because you have no idea what's going to happen. So when you embrace it, when you embrace not knowing, when you embrace the uncertainty, you actually are more happier, because if you anticipate that it's not going to be dark and everything's going to be exactly clear for you, you're going to be mostly disappointed. But if you embrace that a lot of times you have no clue what's going to happen, you're ready for it. You're like, oh, I knew that's going to happen. And you build your life based on not knowing what's going to happen. So you're more at home, you're more enjoying, you're more prepared than being surprised, like, oh, it didn't happen like I expected it, and now I'm annoyed or upset, or, not to say I want my life to be exactly how I want it. I want to know that tomorrow I'm going to earn this much money. But that's not realistic. So I like to be, somebody in my comments to my latest article say, you're the realistic dreamer, to dream, but to be anchored in reality. So I love that. And I'm learning to use it.
The realistic dreamer. Yes. I would like you to expand a bit more about that mindset that one needs to have in order to embrace the uncertainty rather than clinging on to whatever certainty or predictability they can get. Because the way you were describing it, it sounds like a different way of looking at things generally. So yeah. Can you give us perhaps an example or some kind of way of thinking of embracing uncertainty rather than rejecting it or fighting it or fearing it?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, I can. The first thing we need to remember that we were never meant to have certainty. Actually, we didn't even have time. If we look at the history of humanity, the invention of time, if you wish, we existed on this earth for, I would say, roughly, like as we are as human beings right now, several hundreds of thousands of years. So this 10 or 100 years that we're living right now, the last, let's say century of modern living, is not enough to change how our minds work. Our minds evolved over hundreds of thousands or millions of years to arrive to who we are as a species. Is about, there is no time. You wake up, you seek food, you try to find food. There was never a refrigerator. So you're built to go seek and find food and protect your family. And you built around uncertainty, which is why we are afraid of things. Fear is about, if we hear a rustle of a few bushes, we anticipate probably a bear, probably a saber-toothed tiger, something that's going to eat us. So we're always on our guard. So that is actually the natural way of doing. But in the last, what we're learning all the time when we go to school, when we go to university, when we work with people around us, is that life is some sort of stability. You choose a career path, you work with that, let's say you build your skill set, and then you work in that space for such and such time. That is a learned behavior. The non-learned behavior and let's say the natural behavior is that there is uncertainty. That's the reality of life. Mm-hmm. You can do whatever. So it's about, I don't see pessimistic. It's more like look at life and see what is the likelihood of something continuing or not. What's the likelihood of, let's say tomorrow, Donald Trump tweets a tweet and changes the whole geopolitical of the of the world. That is, I mean, whether you like it or not, but it's one tweet. You're one tweet away from changing the whole world, like imposing tariffs on everything, for example. And suddenly your world, I live in Canada, and suddenly you can't do business with the States. Everything changes. So that is a reality. That's not, pessimistic or something. That's the reality of the world we live in today. If we lived 10 years ago and somebody said, the president will issue a tweet and the world will change, well, they will laugh at you, right? So you need to be realistic and living in the world and noticing. That's an observation. But at the same time, that's the realistic part. At the same time, you need to have goals that extend 10, 20, 30 years and saying, this is where I want to go. And then it's up to you to learn. At the very beginning, it's going to be hard, but to learn how to anchor, put your feet in reality and continue to seek your goals. That is a skill that only can be developed by doing it again and again. So at the very beginning, you're going to suck at it. Just like if I don't know what sport you don't do, but let's say I don't play baseball.
No, me neither.
But if you give me a bat right now and you try to, I'm going to suck at it because I have a goal of being successful at it. But the reality right now is this is my first time. So if we are, I would say, compassionate with ourselves, empathetic with ourselves, and understand that we are not built to deal with the challenges of today's world. Not school, not university, not our parents, not even history has prepared us for this moment. So we can anchor ourselves in saying, I'll learn what's happening, and I still attach myself to my goals, and I will try and test to see, I will try simple things like, what if I do this? What if I do that? And test and continue to find my path and build myself up. So accepting that we're a beginner in life and accepting that we are a big dreamer in life, and then working at it. Unfortunately, there's no other way. That's why I didn't call it a formula. If there was a formula and I found it, trust me, I will share it. At least I will apply it first and I will share it. But if you look at, I was looking at yesterday's article I wrote, I said, the kind of jobs, I looked at other jobs, like somebody who worked with gorillas, the latest lady, I'm bad with names, but she worked with gorillas. She just passed away. And she worked with gorillas. Like, who chooses that as a career path? But she's one of the most influential people today. There are a lot of career paths or things that you do that has nothing to do with how we accept modern reality. So chart your own path, anchor yourself in reality, and be a big dreamer. That is my solution.
I liked very much you used words like journey, discovery. Earlier on you said dance, art, and I think this, when one looks at it like that, and also realizing that no matter how unique we feel in our self or in our, self-perception, we are one of billions of hundreds of billions of human beings that have experienced what we are experiencing, with some variations, of course, but, this, the human life. So it's great when you look at it from that perspective. It takes away some burden, some heaviness that you were saying earlier, to be compassionate with ourselves. So I think that's what I'm trying to say in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. I love that. Yeah, being compassionate with ourselves, because we expect way too much of ourselves, because the world expects way too much of us. Is that you should, I was talking to my daughter, and like, she's still 16, 17, and she's like, she's expected to know what she's going to do, like what her job is. And how are you going to do that if you haven't experienced what a job is like? Like at the very, when I grew up in Syria, we don't take a job usually at early age. Like mostly it's after you graduate from university. In the Western world, some people, work as a waiter or something. Yeah, you get some experience, but that doesn't tell you what it's like to be an engineer, for example, or doesn't tell you what it's like to be a doctor, for example. Like, how are you going to make a choice that will impact your life, impact how long you're going to study, your life, your prospects, and you have zero experience of it? So, but if you approach it like an experiment, it's like, I'm going to take a chance and I'm okay to change my direction. That's the other thing. Choice is a very powerful tool that you make in the moment. And whatever your choice, like if I choose to eat right now, let's say chocolate or vanilla, and that doesn't mean if I choose chocolate right now, I always have to choose chocolate because I'm the chocolate guy. When I'm offered something different, let's say an hour from now or something, and I'm in a different mood, I can choose something different. And if we deal with life like that, the burden is a little bit less. And I know you have to pay rent, you have to provide for your family, you have to do all of that. There are, of course, responsibilities on you. And you can always make a choice because there is no guarantee if you choose to work at a different work or to choose to be employable that you're going to be employable. I mean, everything's changing right now. Probably we are one of the greatest and the gravest moment in our human existence, because right now we are facing, for the past, I would say 100 years, we built our civilization based on certainty. We know how the world's going to unfold in the next 20 years. We can count on certain things that will be. And that relatively was kind of right. Mm-hmm. But if you look at it with a more thoughtful eye, you will see that our world was never certain. It's just that we didn't know as much about it. Right now, we know so much about what's happening all the time that we can see the uncertainty. We can see how one invention or one innovation, let's say at the corner of the world, can change the whole world. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't know that. Like when I was growing up in the 90s, we had just one newspaper and there's this clipping about science. Now you open Instagram and you know in 1 hour, I would say, the lifetime of how much I would have known in my 90s and in the 90s. So that is what changed. So we see the uncertainty and we need to get back to being comfortable with, I don't control the world. I only can make my own choices and experiment and see what life throws at me and deal with it.
Let me ask you something, Hussein, because you said choice. You mm-hmm. mentioned the choice, or perhaps another way of me saying the same thing was a decision to do something. I like mm-hmm. using the word decision, but essentially we're talking about this choice that you're making. And I wanted to ask you, how do you balance in your choice making? You have the engineering background. So how do you balance reason and intuition when you make choices?
Yeah. So there is a difference in my world between choice and decision. For many people, they're similar. Decision is usually, let's say, a choice you make based on data or options that are available to you, or basically based on thinking. Decision usually requires thinking. Yes. Choice is a pure, let's say, decision that you make internally based on what's happening with you internally. So let's say I choose to be a great father. That has nothing to do with the data in front of me. Like, for example, having a great son or being in a position where I can be a good father. Like, it's not dependent on the outside circumstances. It's dependent on my internal drives. So choice is always internally driven. Mm-hmm. A decision is externally influenced. You look at the environment around you. Let's say, for example, you decide to follow this path because it looks, more secure, whatever. But a choice is something that comes from internal. So most people confuse them when they apply choice to outside. Like, I choose to, go this, ride in my car and go. That's really a decision because you have a car, you have all of these things. That's a decision. A choice is something you choose about who you want to become. So, for example, and usually not supported by any data. Like, for example, I chose to become a rock star when I was in my 90s, in the 90s, basically. And I didn't have a guitar. I didn't know if I can get a guitar. I didn't know if I would suck at practice or not, but that's who I choose to become. And then my actions and thoughts and words flow from there. So I went and got a guitar and then, got a better guitar, and I trained for hours because I chose who I want to become. And then my actions flew from it. A decision is usually let's say it's usually in business, like we have this client, that client, this client pays us this much. We have this market we want to open, and I look at the data and I make a decision. So that is how I would put it. And usually choice is powerful because It's between you and yourself, and what you basically making a claim on the future that you want to become. I choose to become an artist. And the beauty about choice is you can change it the next moment. I choose to become a guitar player. I grabbed the guitar and I thought I would feel very good about it. Then I was like, I really hate the guitar. So I make a different choice. But it requires practice. It requires me to act on my choice to make a different choice.
That's it's food for thought there, the differentiation between decision and choice. So I'm glad you brought that up. Hussein, let me ask you something different. Applies quite a lot to many of the listeners of the podcast who find themselves in a position where they are successful externally by the standards, the external standards. However, inside they may be feeling unfulfilled or at a crossroads or in not a matching situation to that external success. What would you say to someone like that tells you, Hussein, just the person that I described? Would you perhaps offer something specific to them or something to guide them?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that question. I would say this is, I call it the someday symptom. And the someday symptom is someday when I get all this money, when I achieve success, when X, Y, Z are in place, when I have the right time, the right opportunity, whatever, I will get X. So for example, I used to do that. I said, like with my family, it's like one day when I have enough money, I will have enough time to spend with my family. So we put these conditions that between us and between what we want, what we're really after, the kind of person that we want to come. I want to be a great father. So in case I have to make a lot of money to give me enough time to be a great father. It's the same. I tell the story of the executive who went to Mexico sitting at a beach, saw the fishermen, and the story, right?
I have heard this. It's very appropriate to what you're saying.
So,
yes.
So it's like, okay, they see the fishermen. It's like, oh, you have great fish. Have you thought, of building the business? And the fisherman asks him, why would I do that? It's like, or how? Well, you go, buy a few boats, catch more fish, you can sell more fish, and then what? And then, you will grow your business, and then what? You will make a lot of money, and then what? It's like, you can go on the exchange, the NASDAQ exchange or whatever, sell the stocks, and then what? It's like, you can retire, and then what? You can come and spend time on the beach. It's like, but I'm already here. So a lot of times we put these barriers between where we are and where we want to go. So the question is, for those successful people, what do you really want? What is the thing that will give you that life? And then be realistic and anchor yourself. What does that really mean for you? Who do you need to become to be that person? Because a lot of times, success that we go after, or how we measure success, the reason why because if they felt that they're really successful, they wouldn't need anything else. But most of the time, and I would argue, I may be wrong, but I would argue that we define success based on how the world defines success. So most of our definitions of success are not our own definitions. So I would say the first thing for them is and it's scary, by the way, just heads up, because if we are trying to define success in our own way, we might discover that everything we've worked towards is not success. So it's scary to go there. But again, be compassionate with yourself. Ask yourself that question. Say, what is success really for me? What I'm really after? And then ask yourself, who do you need to become? And then choose to become that person. And once you choose to become that person, your thoughts, words, and actions flow from that becoming. So you start doing what that person would do. And then your life will start taking a different trajectory. That's what I have to offer them. And I'm telling you right now, it's not easy, but it's enjoyable.
I like what you said, thoughts, words, and actions flow from the choice of who I want to become. I needed to repeat it, and I'll probably repeat it afterwards because it's a very profound, actually. I will leave it to that. Hussein, Before I start wrapping up this fascinating conversation, where would you like to direct the listener to connect with you and find out more about your work?
Thank you very much. You can go to my website, husseinhallak.com. You can find my writings there. Hopefully they give you some, I like the interaction. So please comment, share, subscribe, as they say in the YouTube world, and interact. I'm offering a few programs, thinking about that because a lot of people ask, and I love to mentor and work with people. So yeah, find me on my website. If you have a question, send it my way. I enjoy the conversation, as you can see.
Excellent. And I also have two quick questions for you that I always ask on the podcast. And the first one is, what does personal development mean to you?
Personal development is, for me, is the constant growth towards the person you want to be. So you decide who you want to be, and then you basically develop the skills to become that person, or you choose who you want to be, and then you develop, let's say, those skills or those abilities or the way of thinking to get there. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes we think of personal development as, skills, like, getting more sales, whatever. But a lot of times it's developing the mindset. So I would say mindset, skill set, tool set. That's personal development. You develop your mindset, you develop your skill set. And the tools that you use is also part of the personal development, because you have to learn how to use them, and they extend your ability, like AI right now, or let's say any tool that you use in your craft.
And hypothetical question, if you could go back in time and meet your 18-year-old self, what's one piece of advice you would give him?
I would say, I would be tempted to say, don't change anything, but I would be more tempted, I would say, to say that go all out, like be more yourself than you've ever been. I've been someone who pursued the success based on what others defined as success a lot of times in my life, and that led to disastrous results. So I would say be more in line with who I am and what I want and who I want to become. That's what I would say. And I would say everything will turn out fine. And I won't tell him how bad things are going to go. I'll say everything's going to be fine. That's what I would tell him. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to survive, or you're going to die. Who knows? My wife always jokes with me, and we will be sitting and we will be having a conversation. And then she uses, I think it's the 3rd chapter in my book. And the title of the chapter is "Then You Die." So we will be sitting, and the chapter is very short. It talks really about the life cycle, how many days, how many years we live. We live roughly like around 69 years. That's how roughly we live. And we will be sitting and we say this and this, and then she says, "Then you die," and we burst out laughing, because at the end of the day, no matter how bad, how good life is, we all die at the end of the day. It's part of life. So we need to take it a little bit easy, take the edge off, and, be a little bit more, enjoy more life, and be in the moment, I think, is a good advice for all of us.
Not just the 18-year-olds, but all of us, indeed, to keep that eventuality in that thing, inevitability. I meant in the end. Yes. Hussein, thank you very much for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. I want to wish you all the very best with everything that you will do from now on. And I will leave it to you for your parting message to the listener of this conversation. What would you like to leave them with?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for this great conversation. Brilliant questions, and very deep in a very short time. You don't hold back. So I love it. Thank you, Agi. For the listeners, I would say the most important thing you can do right now is spend some time with yourself and make a choice. It can be a simple choice. It starts with simple choice. It's just practice. Just continue to choose. And when you're offered, whether you want pizza or you want ice cream, just choose. life is not going to end. Make choices, practice making quick choices, aligned choices with who you are internally, even at the simplest things, and just get used to that. That's your ultimate power. And the more you practice it, the more powerful you become. So that is my wish for you, that you continue to make choices that bring you joy and pleasure. And if they don't, make a different choice. As simple as that.
Thank you for listening to this conversation with Hussein Hallak. I hope it has given you a fresh perspective on how to live with greater intention, authenticity, and ease in the face of life's uncertainty. If this conversation inspired you or gave you something meaningful, consider supporting the show. It's like buying me a coffee in return for the value you received. Visit personaldevelopmentmasterypodcast.com/support or just tap the link in the episode description. Until next time, stand out, don't fit in,